This video will be about attaching a fan to a filter assembly to mount inside of a hood. I already took this filter, advertised as a HEPA filter, out of a Roomba replacement cartridge. The actual Roomba filters are not advertised as HEPA, but a lot of the replacement filters are. And for a later project, be very interesting to test this to make sure. So what I did is I put a layer of material that won't let air through, in this case silicone caulk, all the way around the filter so that the only way for air to get from the outside of this jar to the inside is by going through the filter. And when I initially installed the filter, what I did is when this is fully tightened, I made a mark for where this lines up so that this way I can keep this aligned. So I'm thinking I want the filter pointed down so that I might be able to add an extra container around this that would protect the filter from rain. And so when I do mount this, I'm going to have this set up so that this vent is blowing down over my face. So I want to line it up like that. But it's good to, when you're tinkering with things, to plan in advance so that things will work out more likely the first time. And though not always, something to just part of the process of doing things yourself is to expect sometimes it won't work and you will have to try again. So what I want to do is I want to be able to attach this jar lid here. A nice thing too is that if I want to change the filter design, I could just find any jar that has the same fitting and I'd be able to attach it to this fan assembly once it's done. But right now I'm not going to pull any air through this, so I need to cut a hole. I have a compass. You could also use an outline. One way of doing a circle is you could just look around, try to find something that's the same size. This is a little bit too small. Try to find something that's just the right size and then you can trace around it. Since I have this compass with a blade, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the diameter, which is the largest part across the circle, or it's the circumference, the fence around the circle, correctly said circumference, but I like the way Terry Pratchett says it, which is the circumference divided by pi is the diameter. So this is going to be about, if I wanted to make tape going all the way around the circle, I would multiply this by 3.2 and I would have it. Just trying to make sure this is the longest part, and I'm getting that it's about 49 millimeters across. So if I give an extra centimeter, it would be 50, extra millimeter. Extra centimeter is that much. So centimeter, millimeter. There's quite a lot of difference between centimeter and millimeter. Millimeter is 1/10 of a centimeter. But if I make, so here I'm measuring diameter all the way across. For this compass, it's spinning around the center of the circle, so I'm measuring half of that diameter, which is radius. So half of 50 is 25, because 2 25s make a 50. So I'm going to set this to, I'm going to give myself an extra couple millimeters if there's enough room on the lid. So that would be, I'm going to set my compass to 26. And also, if you want to go the compass route, if you can set up a set of scissors, sometimes they have a screw that you can tighten. If you can set up a set of scissors so that it's very tight, you can use a set of scissors a lot like this. It won't cut all the way through the plastic, but you could use it to mark off for you. I've found that often the best way, it requires ventilation, but often the best way for cutting plastic is to use something hot, like ideally a nail attached to a soldering iron. So this lid is not that much larger than the fan, and if I cut a full 26 millimeter radius for getting an extra millimeter around the edge of the fan, I'm going to get a little bit closer to the edge of this cap than I would like. So I'm going to go with the minimum that I can. In this case, I'm going to go with 25. Because that will give me a little bit of distance between this edge and the area where the jar is going to fit. This lid, a lot of lids are manufactured in a way where the plastic is injected in the center, which gives me a place to mark the center. If I didn't, one thing you can do with a compass is you can make a slightly larger circle, and then from the edges make semicircles of all the same radius from different points in the edge, and then see where they all cross in the center. Or you can measure the halfway point from several angles, and that's another way that you can do this. But since this injection point in the plastic is right there, I'm going to use that as my center piece. And before I cut, I'm just going to kind of make sure that my center is really in the center. And that done, I'm going to just trace a cut up. And I'm sorry about the periodic beeping. There's some work being done to the landscape near the railroad tracks by my place. And the bulldozer beeps when it backs up. So you'll be hearing that beeping sound periodically. If you count the time between beeps, that's the average amount of time between when the operator backs up and then goes forward again. I wonder if they're actually planning to make another bridge. Something I should look into is to see if there's a place where the city posts planned projects. It'd be interesting to know what they're doing. Another way of finding out about a project like that is you can contact the alderman. City aldermen generally should know about the projects going on in the neighborhood. Another thing that would be really cool, this we do not yet have in the US. I'm not actually aware of a place that does have it. But if everyone was given, let's say, $300 a year or more to donate to journalists of their choice, then anytime there's something going on locally and you're curious about it, you could just tell journalists, hey, I'll donate this money if you look into this issue. Also, allowing donations directly to journalists would give journalists some greater level of independence from the papers that they work for. It's true there could be some abuses to the system, but I think the benefits would far outweigh the cons or negatives to the benefits. These lids are definitely tough to cut, but we're making some gradual progress. In this case, I kind of want to avoid using the soldering iron, mainly because I want to get as good of a fit as I can. And this is going to should give me a much cleaner edge than I guess there's different ways of measuring cleanness. If I used something hot to cut the edge, I would actually get a very smooth edge. But the problem that I would run into is, at least my setup with the modified soldering iron that I would use to cut this, is it's not going to be I'm not going to get a perfectly round circle. In some places it's going to melt a little bit more. And I'll also have an edge that will have a little bit of extra thickness, which could possibly interfere with the way that the jar itself will work. I think I'm partly getting through this, but this compass seems to have a lot of trouble on just the very last stage. Alright. Might possibly have to go back and smooth up some of the edge. I've essentially got most of the cut around the edge. I'm trying to cut in a way so that if this slips, I'm not going to hurt myself. Right now I'm pushing straight down. It's definitely very difficult to cut this material. Looks like there's a place here where the compass kind of slid. And a place here as well. I ended up cutting a little bit inside of the circle. So kind of literally, a spiral is a shape that changes radius with each rotation. So this started to spiral in. And there's some interesting physics behind that. Alright, so I'll need to smooth this out a little bit, but now I have a cutout for the air going into the fan. And once I smooth this out, then I'll just glue this together and I'll have a setup that I can work with. So again, that's how to cut a hole in a lid to fit to the intake of a fan for attaching a filter. In this case, this.